Good afternoon, and welcome to Classical Guitar Therapy. I'm Emily Davis, and I'm a working musician in Madison, Alabama. And this guitar series is going to showcase some technique books, some performance pieces, and mostly to chronicle my progression through some hand therapy that I need to do. So I'm going to get started today by introducing some guitar technique books and to kind of tell you what my process will be over the next few weeks as we go through this journey to look at some good exercises, some practice tips, and also to just look at how our hands move and work on the instrument. So a little bit of quick background. I have an appointment in another week with a hand specialist just to see if there's something serious going on with my hands. I had a baby back in February, which is wonderful. But before then, I was unable to practice as much as normal. And since then, it's been hard to get back. So recently, when I've done gigs, they can be 2 or 3 hours long. I've been experiencing some hand and arm pain. So I'm going to go back to the basics, work on the simple exercises, and then see what the doctors say, and I'll let you know from there. So today I'm going to introduce the technique books that I'm going to be looking at, and I would really welcome some suggestions for others to review. I have mostly just what is in my collection right now that I'm going to be pulling from. And I'll be showing some of my favorite exercises in those, and then showing you some new things that maybe I haven't done before that I found very useful. So today I'm going to introduce the books, and I welcome your comments on what exercises you recommend, and also what music you might recommend to help with any sort of hand issues. So the first one is the one I'm most familiar with, and it is the one that I used extensively, and that is pumping nylon. And just, this is really one of my favorite technique books. A lot of it has to do with Scott Tennant and his writing style, and how well thought out the exercises are. And I like a book with a little bit of humor, so this one is really fun. And I have found that these exercises do a lot of good in what I consider a short amount of time. And if you really focus on the exercise, which is something I'm working with my students on a lot, is if you focus on it, then you will see results. And if you do it correctly, releasing your hands of the tension and doing things slowly so you do them correctly each time, it builds those good habits. So we'll be looking at pumping nylon. Some of my favorite exercises in here are any of the right hand studies. The Giuliani studies are fantastic. And then the left hand finger independence exercises. I have my students do those frequently. And right now, they're doing a technique practice challenge. So they all have exercises that they're responsible for every week. So I'm pulling a lot of those from pumping nylon. And the great thing about this book now is you can get it like I have, which is just standard notation. You can get tab, you can get DVD to go along with it. So they've done a great job of making this accessible to anyone. The second book is the Aaron Shearer Learning the Classic Guitar Part 1, and there are 3 parts to this. Part 1 is really the explanation of the technique, and this one is very well written as well. I don't think it's maybe for children to read, but especially like for me now, going back and reading it, and with the goal of teaching my students and then perfecting my technique as well. I really like this one, so I'm looking forward to reviewing the Aaron Shearer technique as well. And it's one of those that I've seen many professional guitarists playing and following the Shearer method, and the results really speak for themselves. So we'll be doing that. And the rest of these books are ones that I've had for a long time, but maybe have not invested the time in them to really study and see what's going on. This is Mastering Guitar Technique, Process, and Essence by Christopher Berg. And I have used some of these exercises just recently with my students, because as I was preparing for this series and looking at these books, I said, wow, this is really, really fantastic. The right hand, early on, the right hand exercises are good. And if I'm trying to get my students and even myself, to look at these as something that can be enjoyed, because you will see a reward in your playing from doing them. And I find that to be true with some of the things I've already experienced out of this one. So Christopher Berg, Mastering Guitar Technique, Process, and Essence. You really need to do some scales. So this is a scale book I've had for years. The scales and arpeggios in this one kind of reminds me of, if you've done piano lessons where you're doing, 1, 4, 5 progressions in your scales and working on all of your minor scales and learning your keys. So I'm looking forward to going through this one and applying scales in my regular practice too. The Handbook for Teachers, the Classical Guitar Pedagogy, a Handbook for Teachers by Anthony Glise. This is another one that I have highlighted sections in and looked through some, but again, I have not taken the time to really study it. So I'm looking forward to, again, just to digging a little deeper and seeing what this teacher has to say as well. Anthony Glise is someone that my first guitar teacher, Margarita de Quesada, knew personally, and I already see some things in here on performance attire and musicianship and things that teachers should be teaching their students, but sometimes those things you kind of get to the recital and it's like, oh, we need to go over this again. And just adding that extra layer of professionalism, but also looking through to see what he has to say about hand injuries and working on your technique, polishing it, putting that into your practice time efficiently. This last book is a bit of an unusual one, and I've had it for a while, but I've always looked at it as something a little simple because there's some strumming in there, and I always thought, well, that's not really a classical guitar book, and maybe just put it to the back of my stack. But the other day I pulled it out. This is How to Play Guitar by Roger Evans, and it was published in 1979. And as I was looking through it, I said, this is some very good information for people who are looking for an instrument, who are needing information on topics like how to travel with an instrument, performance anxiety, and there actually seems to be some really nice technique work in here. And, I'm not trying to say that this is, some lesser book, but it's just not one that I would have considered right away for this series until I started looking through it. Just right off the bat, to give you an idea of some of the topics, right from the beginning, it says which is the right guitar for you, how to choose and buy your guitar, taking care of your guitar, etc. And that, if you have students, like I have students, sometimes they just buy a guitar and show up for lessons. And sometimes that works out really well, but sometimes you get guitars that are harder to play, and it makes it very frustrating for students. So that's part of the reason why I wanted to share some information out of here, and then also to see if there are some exercises and some more ideas for technique and practice that might be beneficial as well. So those are the books. There are 6 of them, and I'm going to be putting together a practice routine and selecting exercises from these books, and also doing a short review on the book after I've gone through them, just to let you know sort of what I've discovered on my own going through. And this process will take a little while. It'll probably take 2 or 3 weeks at least to get these books reviewed and read. And I don't have a whole lot of free time, but that's, I'm really wanting to present this material now. And so if you have recommendations for books, for methods, for student pieces, and material that you have found that works great for learners who are working on technique, then I would really appreciate any suggestions in the comments. If you know exercises from these books that are especially good, then I welcome that as well. And if also, if you have tips on working through hand injuries, I would also really appreciate that, because I think that's something that's maybe not talked about as much. And, I know for myself going through this, it can be a little discouraging, but I also know that it's something that can be helped through, stretching, doing the exercises, working on materials slowly and bringing yourself back up to speed, etc. So I hope you will join me on this journey. If you like the video, please leave me a like and subscribe so you can be notified when the next episode comes out. And also leave a comment and let me know if you have any suggestions. I'm looking forward to this, and thank you for watching. Bye.